In this interview, I'm going to be talking to energy economist Ed Hurst from the University of Houston, and we're going to be talking about how President Donald Trump's new policies, and especially tariff policies, are affecting the U.S. competitive position globally, especially vis-a-vis China. So, welcome to the interview, Ed.
Thank you, Marco.
I just came across a Wood Mackenzie press release yesterday in my inbox, and it said it was an amazing statistic, and that is in 2024, which is when former President Biden applied the 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs. Canada followed in September. But China simply has sort of pivoted to the global south, as I predicted it would at that time. 20% increase in Chinese exports in clean tech or electrotech and 35 more manufacturing plants in 1 year. And it seems like the competitive position of the US with respect to China is deteriorating over time, and the White House doesn't seem to grasp the significance of that.
That's a good observation. The White House and Congress in particular have been so focused on their own reelection, their own constituencies, that they've lost sight of where we are globally. The Chinese have one priority, and that's to keep their domestic economy employed. They use their their nation's balance sheet to keep this up. The U.S. uses its balance sheet to have deficit spending, but not to invest in the local economy, local being domestic economy. But China is. And so this growth in solar panels and this technology, they are subsidizing these installs across the global south, the rest of the world, in fact. And and with no fuel cost and plenty of land, this cheap, free energy is essentially what it's becoming, is really, you know, expanding Chinese influence and market share globally. Once you're in and you have the service contract or you have the ancillary contracts, you can provide the batteries, then you can provide the electric vehicles. The BYD I saw today, the Chinese manufacturer of EVs, is about to surpass Tesla in the EU for market share, unit for unit, in this next couple of months.
Yeah, one of the things that we don't talk enough about is China's Road and Belt Initiative, which is essentially, I guess, the equivalent of what used to be US aid. And so, China will spend approximately, I think if I remember correctly, $100 billion a year on things like building out a port in Peru, so that its products can be imported and then shipped to Brazil or wherever they're going. And by investing in global South infrastructure, it would seem that the China is setting itself up uh, to not, to be the importer of choice over the U.S. And meanwhile, the U.S. is obsessed with its domestic markets, and that is the opposite of what's happened over the last 80 years. And the importance of that, I don't think is understood enough.
Well, the U.S. was never really large on going in and building roads and bridges and refineries. That's not what the nation did. Certainly with the Marshall Plan for the rebuilding of Europe and MacArthur um, uh, coming into Japan, rebuilding after the war, those were essentially one-offs. And the U.S. really has not gone down the road, if you will, like China has. China knows that by building infrastructure, building roads, building buildings, apartment buildings, housing, industrial facilities, that enables the local economy to fill in and start operating. And so the Chinese have done that all through, especially sub-Saharan Africa, and of course through Latin America. Um, the U.S. has missed the boat. That's not been a priority for the U.S. USAID was mainly teaching, mainly food related, healthcare. China has been much more concerned about not only not only helping an economy build its industrial infrastructure, but as you point out, ensuring that they've also got a ready-made customer.
Right. And one of the points that comes up over and over again is, at least when I talk to experts outside of North America, they point out that all the modeling that shows oil demand growing into out to 2050 is based on the assumption, and this is OPEC's modeling in particular, is based on the assumption that the global south will increase its road transport demand for oil. So they will drive internal combustion engine vehicles instead of electric vehicles. And the whole strategy that we've talked about in other interviews you and I had of American energy dominance being oil and gas is being undercut, undermined right now by the fact that China is helping other countries electrify. And
Uh,
that eventually is going to play out in falling global demand for oil, which America has kind of pegged its energy policy to.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I mean, the U.S., sends its oil to places that can use the light sweet crude, and so that would be Europe and China. But we're not selling any cars, and China's going to dominate in the EV side. It's going to dominate in the hybrid side, and the U.S. Doesn't have Ford Motor Company selling hundreds of thousands of units across Africa or Latin America. That's going to be a real issue. And as China provides the infrastructure and the charging networks, out of China last month, they said that they had a automobile battery that would recharge to full in 5 minutes. That takes away the range anxiety. And of course, going into these developing economies, they don't need to have a highway system like somebody had, well, like Los Angeles or New York City. We don't need but one or two interstates. Certainly don't need the networks of roads. I mean, in Texas, it used to be one man, one horse. Well, now it's one man, two 150s, Ford one F-150s. I mean, there's energy poverty across the world. And as these societies come into the 21st century, they're all going to want to have an iPhone and an iPad and Zoom calls. Um, they're not all going to get a Ford F-150, and most of them won't need one.
Yeah, they'll get a $10,000 BYD Seal,
Exactly.
for example, or a Dolphin. I think it's a Dolphin that's $10,000 US. So let's get back to, I want to circle back to the what we talked about at the very beginning is competitive risk for the American economy, which has been the largest economy throughout my lifetime. And we expected that the U.S. America would provide economic leadership, and in building a rules-based trading system, for example. And the Trump administration seems to be ceding all of that to China by focusing in instead of focusing out. Is there a recognition? First of all, am I correct in that? And B,
No,
is there a
this is
recognition in the U.S. that that's happening?
there's not a widespread recognition, at least not in Washington. Um, Certainly the challenge with the tariff war, with the mass deportations. By the way, he is in the first half of the year, the Trump administration is lagging behind the Biden administration in terms of deportations. Um, he's looking to make the U.S. a high cost producer of everything. I mean, given that the U.S. imports steel, aluminum, copper, and apparel, clothing, this is going to drive up the cost of manufacturing for U.S. goods. It's also, of course, going to drive up the cost of labor domestically for the U.S. That's going to make the U.S. a high cost producer in the global market for almost everything. Now, keep in mind, the U.S. is the high cost producer for oil. The shale plays are the most expensive globally. But now the Trump administration is pushing us down a path that may make us the most expensive alternative to any good that a developing nation could buy on the global market.
And we're going to be revisiting this theme, in future interviews because uh, it's an important point for Canada because Canada, its decision makers at this point, I think, look like they're going to be copying the American strategy of increasing oil and gas exports, becoming an energy superpower in terms of oil and gas at a time when the world is ready to pivot to something else. So thank you very much for this, and we'll look forward to future interviews.
Well, I look forward to it, and we can talk about this $25 pint of Canadian maple syrup I saw in the store last week.
I hope you bought some.
Not that one.